you talking about?
What is this?
I'm asking you a question. What were you talking about?
And I actually think in contrast, because of how understated he is, really well with David Caruso. Because I was saying to Monty, David Caruso, in a way, could have had a career where he could have been like a Nick Cage, mate. Yeah, he can chew the scenery up, but he does it well, and you can like him in films. And I think if he really wanted to, he could probably do more serious films and be a bit pared back, you know. By the way, he's brilliant as the guy who's the up-tempo guy in this, because he's sort of the guy driving some of the plot. Like he even brings the cringe that people loved him for in CSI. Like I told Monty, one of the most iconic moments in this, one of the only laughs, is when he just goes, "Fuck you," like right in the guy's face. And he's like, "You're gonna hit me, Gotti? You're gonna hit me?"
Okay. Jeff, Mike, go downstairs, make sure he doesn't turn around. You come with me.
Hey.
Fuck you. You come with me. Let's go.
And like also, he does a great job because of how over the top he is, where if you're not paying attention, to be fair, I've watched this film a few times, if you watch it at the first time, they don't always spell everything out. So there is a part where you might actually think 4/5 of the way through, he did all the murders. You might actually believe that because he's also such an intense character, isn't he? So I also think some of the, it's actually just, like I said, it's a sleeper cast too. You kind of wouldn't expect this level of performance, but I think they're really well cast too.
I've got a story about Peter Mullen, as it happens. Right, so, and I'm devastated that this happened, but my friends went on a holiday to Europe one year, and I couldn't go. I had esports work, esports ruining my life since 2004. And they went.
He says
and they
while
went
recording
to...
from an esports event.
Yeah, I know. Fuck it.
Yeah, he's not out yet. He's still in prison. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And like institutionalization, he couldn't live on the outside down once.
This is my session 9. Anyway, they went to Budapest and they went out to a late night bar. Obviously Budapest, a big place. And one of the guys that I used to do esports websites with, like my assistant editor, he said, "Fucking hell, that's Peter Mullen." Now, my assistant editor, a guy called Mick, he's from Scotland. He's from a pretty rough estate in Glasgow called Castlemilk. And he said, "Fucking hell, that's Peter Mullen."
Real.
Peter,
that's not a real name.
Yeah.
People have very old-fashioned names and shit there.
It's a tasty place to live, brother. I'll tell you that for free. So anyway, he said I went up to see Peter Mullen. And he went, "Oh, hello, fucking loved you in Tyrannosaur or whatever it was." And Peter Mullen was out there filming that Hercules movie he did with The Rock, right? Yeah. And he'd just gone out for a drink.
One. Wasn't aware that film existed.
Yeah, I know. Right. I'm pretty sure it was a Hercules. I'm pretty sure it was Hercules. Anyway, he said, "Oh, you got a Scottish accent. Where are you from?" And he said, "Oh, I'm from Castlemilk." He went, "Fucking hell, that's a shithole. Like, you want to sit down and get a drink?" And he said, Peter Mullen spent all night genuinely interested, genuinely warm, and he said, "Bring your friends over as well, and we'll have a sit down." He was telling them everything about the onset antics. People were asking, "Is the Rocket?" And he goes, "Drinking with us? You must be fucking crazy." He said he was such a lovely guy, and he spent all evening just drinking with these randoms. So I fucking love this guy. I'm devastated. That is a secondhand story. I wanted that to be my story, but it is.
When you said you were devastated and then led into your friends meeting him, I thought you were going to say he's like a total asshole or something like that.
No,
you're just
devastated. Bro, I'd have been like, "Fuck off with you, Mick. I come from a rough estate as well, Peter. Love me," because he's just so good. But yeah, anyways, apparently by all accounts, he is just a lovely, down-to-earth man. And as I said, I think he's criminally underrated as an actor. He always brings his all to every part. And by the way, at the end, with the breakdown, right, with the big reveal, he fucking sells it. He sells it. We've all seen a horror movie, right, where it's really, really good, and it gets to the end, and the scary bit happens, and the guy just goes full Nick Cage in fucking long legs, which I saw recently. And by the way, just to let you all know, for Halloween, it's dog shit. It is fucking whack. Don't watch it. It is trash. I've never been more disappointed.
I don't normally buy into all the hype on the internet. "Oh, you gotta watch this. Going what? I did. I waited till it came out.
Yep, same.
Regrets. I have regrets. And I love Nick Cage, so I have regrets about that.
I wanted a police procedural, acting smashing of Seven and Zodiac. I was ready for that.
Bro,
And what I got was
the scenes make you think
I
this
know.
this could be good. It's shit after that. Absolute shit.
No,
It's trash.
it's dog shit.
Even
It's
Nick
really
Cage
dog
is
shit,
bad
guys.
in it, and I thought Nick Cage being bad was impossible because being bad's what he does. He's so
No,
good at being bad.
He's bad at being bad in this.
That's how badly done this film is.
It's
Yes.
dreadful.
It's a unicorn.
Tell us what you think about Long Legs in the comments below. It's dog shit. If you
Yes.
like it, you're dog shit.
Skip
Right,
it.
anyway, so yeah, skip it definitely.
And therefore, if you say
Peter
you like
Mullen,
it in the comments, just
amazing
say,
in this.
if you like it, just say, I'm dog shit. That's your comment.
Yeah, exactly. I'm dog shit. But yeah, I mean, like Peter Mullen sends it. There's nothing worse than getting to a horror movie and it just falling flat. The big reveal not working, the big twist not working. Peter Mullen sends it. Like, and you believe he's had a breakdown. His call to his now, as we find out, deceased wife and kid.
Yeah.
It's very emotional. And, you know, it takes a special kind of actor to be able to deliver what is fantastical, you know, supernatural, to deliver it with a very grounded, serious way. You've really got to be on your game.
I am so lonely here. I want to come home. I want to hold you. I want to hold my baby.
If Caruso was playing Gordon, nobody would like this movie because the end would probably be ridiculous. It's not Caruso's fault. It's just who he is. It's hard to believe he won a Golden Globe. You know, like no, was it gold? Yeah, it was a Golden Globe. He won a Golden Globe. Wow. He was really good in NYPD Blue. I'm telling you, if you've ever watched the first season of NYPD Blue, he killed it. But anyway, so yeah, Peter Mullen for me, it's his movie. Everyone else is really good in it. But, you know, he just nails the ending, which is essential for a movie like this, because if it's all build up, the end has to work. And if it doesn't, then the movie is inherently bad. And Peter Mullen is really like kind of the scaffolding that holds the movie upright.
What are the others?
Open your eyes.
What are they?
You gotta wake up.
You tell me where they are.
Would you wake up?
Tell me. Would you wake up?
I am fucking awake!
Hey! Gordon.
I also think, by the way, the ending is one of the most satisfying payoffs because it manages to do the two things you need to do beautifully in a film. Funnily enough, actually, this is the one thing I'll give to the Blair Witch Project. I thought a lot of the Blair Witch Project was bollocks and it was just like idiots in the all scared in the theatre together. But the ending is good if you know the premise of what the story is. Like, it's a mega payoff, like, it's that thing. It's why but this has the mega payoff, which does draw everything together. But crucially, like the end of Blair Witch, hence why the Blair Witch Project 2 is utter dog shit. Don't even watch it. It's offensively bad. It keeps the mistake. It doesn't spell it out. It doesn't go, this is literally a demon. No, that's not. There's a totally separate interpretation. Hence why, by the way, the guy who wrote the film tells a story within it about the idea of like satanic panic within America and the idea of like all psychological things. Also, by the way, there's a concept you have to understand in this film. Funnily enough, it actually exists both in psychological phenomenon and within like the conspiracy world where they actually think there is demonic possession, which is the idea of alters, if people don't know, which is the idea that when someone has a traumatic experience, their consciousness sort of fragments to protect them from the traumatic experience and creates a second personality. So in this case, obviously this woman that we find out about has many personalities and they're all interacting with each other and everything. And that's actually part of the dynamic because actually, as you'll find out later, the clever thing as well is notice they drip feed you that as well. Early on, you're just hearing from like the innocent, most basic alters of like her and the princess and Billy and all that. And by the way, again, great audio design, the voices being used, it is clearly an adult woman doing a silly voice of
Yes,
I'm Billy,
yeah.
and I'm the princess. And I don't know.
Have you seen our doll, Mr. Doctor?
Who am I speaking with?
Mary got a China doll from her mommy, and we can't find it now.
And then that's why, by the way, this is the genius part people will miss. All those voices are clearly a woman doing that. But then at the end, when you get to meet this one character you haven't met yet, Simon, that's not her voice. That is some fucked up, like, vocal. I don't know what they've done to it, but that is like the best voice for an evil entity I've ever heard. It's like iconic. It's that like... It's got like a hiss to it that's fucking sick. Again,
It reminded me...
is mega on this.
Peter was naughty, Doc.
What did Peter do?
He shouldn't have done it, Doc.
It reminded me of Brad Dourif's voice that he did in Exorcist 3.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which Exorcist 3 Legion, which is fucking amazing.
Which you were thinking of picking for this arc, actually.
Yeah, because it's got the greatest jump scare in horror history, probably, but it's certainly top 3, and is just a wonderfully performed film. But we didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, I'll also add there've been a lot of films that have dealt with this subsequently, actually. There was one with John Cusack called Identity, which was ultimately, you've seen that as well. Right? Yeah, you know, it's like all these different people are in a hotel room, but they've all got the same key with the same number, and they don't know why and what's going on. And you can probably tell by the title, really, where that one's going. But I won't spoil it, just in case. But, you know, really, this was kind of like a fresh spin on something, because we'd gone through the 80s, and I thought it was kind of a meta commentary almost with the Satanic Panic stuff, because we had all those satanic possession movies. The popularity of The Exorcist was so insane. The fact that it was like, ooh, that was TM, the scariest movie ever. It was banned in the UK for many, many years, and when it got re-released, I went to the cinema to see it, and as soon as the possessed kid said your mother sucks cocks in hell, the whole fucking cinema cracked up laughing. I'm like, you're ruining my night.
2 quick things. One, Monty, this is why I have to explain British culture to you. The genius is that was still the era before they just let everything in full degeneracy go mad. When they still held on to some sort of like Victorian British sense of being proper. And so the notion was, Monty, it wasn't just this. Are you ready? This will blow your mind. A Clockwork Orange was banned in the UK, Monty. Because the premise was the youth will see this. They will be, you know, it will ruin them.
Looking for the old in-out.
And they will just run wild and do all these things, and that will spoil the youth, basically. So that's why you couldn't let them watch The Exorcist. And similarly, a second thing, here's a banger sidebar for you. It's going to be a quick one. Here's an anecdote. It's not me that it happened to. It's a friend of a friend. But this is a real story, and it's one of the funniest stories ever. I think I might have even told Richard on Bang Numbers before. Like, so Monty, there's a friend of a friend, and he goes for a date with a girl that he's really into. And on the date, he goes... Like, she says something like, oh, you know, my middle name's Carrie or something, right? And he goes, oh, Carrie, eh? Well, you know what? Your mother sucks cocks in hell. Well, that's The Exorcist. Like, Carrie's the one with the place. So that has no context to this girl whatsoever. And he doesn't realise, this is the perfect part, until later, after the date, when someone tells him, that's not even the movie, is it? Like, she'd never be able to get that reference. And then he realised, not only have I fucked it, and that's something you're going to think about forever, by the way. You're going to bed on the pillow thinking about that 10 years. And even better, if you were to construct...
I'm going to be thinking about it.
If you were to construct the most insane, out-of-context thing to say to a woman on a first date that she could have no way of knowing, that would be it. That's like Mad Men. How would I say something insane that would ensure? Just say to her after she says a name, your mother sucks cocks in hell, and then go on like that's just nothing. It's mental, isn't it? I had to just tell you that. This is so out there.
This episode's going to get monetized, lads.
It is good.
Yeah, what an insane thing. Anyway, 80s demonic possession movies were big, but you know it's a bit played out if it's demonic. But what was interesting is we started getting in the 2000s. We started getting like more about this. You know, is it demonic? Is it Satan, or is it something else? Sure. Is it like there's an interesting theory around this movie, which is ultimately, and this is where it has overlap with Cure, which we'll talk about obviously next week. But the malevolent spirit, Simon, can sort of only enter you at a point when you're at your weakest ebb and liable to do something anyway. Perfect. And obviously that's what the last line is. What is it? I live in the weak and the wounded. Yeah, in the weak and the wounded. Yeah.
And where do you live, Simon?
I live in the weak and the wounded. Doc.
So obviously that in itself sort of throws up this question, because similar to Cure in the sense that you can't be hypnotized to do something you don't want to do. And what the movie is all about is that repression and resentment that's building up in Japanese society. You know, here, these, you know, this guy, ultimately, this is a movie about a working class guy who's not making money, who's a new father that has been pushed to his fucking limits. He's not getting jobs anymore. He's losing bids. He's losing sleep, and now he's got more responsibilities than ever.
Metaphorically, his life is that pot of fucking bobbling stuff on the stove. It's about to fucking pour over. Yeah, there's so many themes laced into this. Yeah.
Well, and crucially, it's his family. His daughter spills it on him. His wife spills it on him, and that's when he has the reaction. And in his mind, because it slowly drip feeds you this information. In his mind, he thinks he's hit her, and he's
it's genius, isn't it? Like I said, it just keeps changing. That story gradually drip feed changes also as we're going.
I don't know if it was a dog barking. I don't know if it was him crying. But I slapped her. I hit my wife.
What you notice is there's one scene where he's wiping red off his hands. I think it's like he's got dry blood in his hands. You don't think anything of it at the time.
No.
And then there's another scene where the flowers he takes to his wife in the flashback are just in the asylum.
Yep.
So what's happened there? And it's like, if you're paying attention, and it might take a second watch, honestly. As I said,
it's got some layered details you don't get on the first one for sure, mate.
But I mean, ultimately, just metatextually speaking, he's fucking broke. He's had enough.
Even when you pick up the phone call, once you know at the end it's a phone call to no one, all those phone calls could be to no one. As I said, the incident could have happened at the beginning of the movie, and that's why he's already got a cyber voice in his head. But we think it's set up as though that's what I thought happened at the end. Yeah,
I mean, that's what I thought happened was that it had already, it had already happened before the movie started.
That's why he keeps replaying that scene, because if you don't know, one of the weird things about memory is it doesn't. If people don't know, the reason I have an amazing memory in esports is I also do a lot of research that refreshes my memory and corrects like the incorrect misperceptions you have. Because one of the problems with memory is when you remember something, you play a little movie in your head, and if the details are wrong, you now like misremember it as being real. And that's actually how I even think people like lie to themselves. Also. So you can tell like he's doing that in this film as well. It's one of the compelling films. By the way, the coolest thing about this film is it could have had no satanic, demonic / weird payoff, and it would have still had mad tension throughout the whole film. Even if it's just that he went mentally killed this person, there was all tension between all the characters. By the way, every single person has someone they have tension with in the movie in some way, and there's some dynamic going on and being played out.
And there's also something interesting going on that I can't quite articulate, but having the gambling addict find all the silver dollars in the hidden cash inside the wall, it's like
the crematorium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where it's like, by the way, what a piece of shit. He's like pulling out fucking like glass eyes and gold teeth, and he's like, these eyes have got to be worth something. Like,
you want him to get $silver. There's almost the karmic aspect of it. If you're going to nick all this money, you're not even telling anything about it, and all that, and you've stolen the guy's wife as well. At that point, you can get wrecked too, mate.
Yeah, he is a massive piece of shit. But it's interesting. It's almost as if. And this is where
great casting. If you were going to cast a actor who is the swagged out, easily fucking cool, charismatic guy who would fuck your ex, that's him. They fucking nailed it with the casting. He nails it. That Josh Lucas guy fucking kills it.
Yeah, he really is, and like the way I love the ironic when he's talking to the young guy with the mullet, the Theo Von looking motherfucker, and he's going, you know what, man, you gotta have an exit plan. Like, you've got no plans, you fucking moron. You are the most deadbeat piece of shit, relying on an imaginary fucking gambling system to hit the jackpot. That is the definition of no plan whatsoever.
Because I got a fucking exit plan, man. I got a way of dealing with the stress. You think Mikey reads all those books for fun? Nah, man. He's got an exit plan, let me tell you.
But anyway, when I don't know if is the asylum setting him up for that, or is that incidental? Because it is a strange coincidence that the guy who's the gambling addict wins the metaphorical jackpot. The guy who's got nyctophobia, he goes into the dark. So is there like some sort of malevolent sentence
that Satan is real and that it was a satanic panic? Uncovers that it's a demonic entity. By the way, here's a detail people don't realise about this movie. I didn't till I watched it like a third time. this is the craziest part when you know this. None of the rest of them ever have a conversation about those tapes. Only Mike ever listens to those tapes and knows the story of Simon and the woman. The rest of them are just working a gig, and at the end, someone starts killing everyone. They have no way to avoid this. That young kid who's at the van, hey, I'm sorry about that. He can't know that his fucking uncle's going to come and fucking kill him. None of them can. There's no hints to them. In fact, they're just hearing that story every day as he keeps building the life. Yeah, you know, she's still having a hard time with, this, still got that thing through the christening. Yeah, it's hanging around, you know. They're just experiencing that. So the other thing about the dread is, this is another genius thing about horror, is when you don't make every character aware of what's going on. These are just people going out. They are sheep to the slaughter. They can't know this. Only the Mike guy is down there as his sort of like way to dick off, rather, because he's overqualified for this job. And as I say, his whole shit is, well, don't worry about the satanic panic stuff. Like, no, that was real. Just turned out it was just some psychological shit. And then the joke is, as he finds out, he only finds out at the end himself. Like, there's some malevolent, fucked up element that can't make sense to him. It's like, it's fucking genius. Even by the way, I even love that one scene where when he goes out, like it just is playing like by itself or whatever, and like it's playing some stuff that he doesn't even hear. He doesn't even hear what's in that scene. Oh, that's what I mean. It's such a subtle film. I can see why, unfortunately, like I say, a lot of people on Reddit just missed it and thought nothing was going on.
Yeah, and we can talk about this before we discuss the ending, but I think we touched on it earlier, but the undercurrent of the asbestos, because I love the setup for this, because it's very plausible, right? Everything was built with asbestos. If you guys don't know what it is actually, it's not an artificial chemical, right? It's a natural fiber that is mined and has been mined for like thousands of years. People allege that Charlemagne actually had a tablecloth woven of asbestos. So instead of cleaning it, they would light it on fire.
Only Monty could come up with a fact like that for this podcast. That's fucking hilarious. Charlemagne. He doesn't mean Charlemagne God, by the way, just to put that out there as well.
No, I mean the guy from France a long time ago. But in any case, like when we're looking at asbestos, it is something that has existed and people have been using it for a very, very, very long time. And when it was used heavily in building construction, so it was often mined frequently in China, and it was then turned into tiles or other fireproof material. And the thing
even used to be in our like lofts and insulation in houses.
It's a very efficient. It's very efficient. It literally will not catch on fire. So if you have this building material, it helps fireproof houses, helps lower danger. Now the problem is that it's normally inert, but if you start to do construction and you start breaking it apart and it gets into the air, that's when it becomes a giant problem.
There was a million lawsuits, by the way. That's also why they took it out. There was a billion lawsuits of people who breathed it in, basically, as they were doing it,
If you are American, you probably have seen these like TV commercials for law firms for mesothelioma, which is the type of lung cancer that you get from... You have to work with asbestos a lot. Obviously, you're not going to get mesothelioma from doing one job, but if you were in construction or destruction and you were breaking apart these, or you were replacing somebody's floor tiles or an office's built like ceiling tiles, these types of things, insulation around pipes that we see in this movie, if you were repeatedly exposed to it, and that's why they say, when he is warning, when Hank is warning Jeff, the nephew.
Which is also because like as a cunt, he's just doing it like
don't wear your mask because it gets inside of you.
It's when he goes like that sort of music, heavy metal, is going to bring it out the walls. You need to put on like Yanni or Enya or something because he's just fucking with me. But that kid's just like, oh okay. Like, but
that's and again, that's one of the things you do. The new guy on the building site.
In the UK, by the way, you always reckon with that shit. Of course, you do it famously. You tell Monty go and get a left-handed wrench and all that shit. All that shit. Yes.
Of course. Same shit everywhere. But these guys are working around it. It is true. Obviously, there is this danger, and I think that these themes really play super nicely into the movie because obviously the idea that there is a latent danger that when they start rustling it up within the asylum then enters them. So because the ending of this film is intentionally ambiguous, right? We don't know whether Simon is some sort of independent, malevolent entity that is like transferring into Gordon because the previous host, Mary, died in the asylum, and he is the the weak and the wounded who is entering the asylum, who then Simon latches into, or because it's a mental institution, is there some sort of implication that among the weak and the wounded there is some corrosive psychological force where Simon is independently arising psychologically within people? It's not some sort of spirit, right? It is something that is a response to overwhelming stress situations, right? And that this is the fear is that it could rise within me or you or anybody under the right circumstances. And so I think that really informs a lot of the interpretations that you're going to make about the end of this film and why Gordon does the things he does and why we hear about Mary, I believe is the name of the woman in the tapes, Mary Hobbs. And why she is in the mental asylum and undergoing these interviews. And obviously session 9, the names came from the taped sessions 1 through 9, 9 being the final one where the Simon character comes out. She has multiple personality or dissociative identity disorder, whatever it's called now. And they changed the name in the DSM, whatever edition is out now. And so, and I think they do, from what I'm aware of, a pretty accurate version of that kind of disorder where, as Thorin mentioned, she is doing the voices, but that's what people frequently do with that disorder.
No, that's a real thing. Yeah. By
Yeah.
the way, here's the detail as well.
It came up again in that Split as well with that James McAvoy movie.
Think about this. He's called Simon. Simon Says. There's even that aspect you can play on as a child. If you don't know as well, there's little details people miss in this one. Because one of the things I like is it doesn't spell it out. So in the same way as the way you can build up eventually that it was Gordon the whole time, is because, for example, like Richard says, his story doesn't check out. As in the facts of the movie show, it's not. When they go there, the Hank guy, to get the coins, he sees the Jif fucking famous like peanut butter jar. Well, that was in the bag of Gordon at the beginning, wasn't it? That was one of the main things with the thermos and the flowers. Then also you have Gordon, remember, who's unaware of any of this psychology. He doesn't know about the Mary Hobbs character. He knows nothing about her. He ends up in her room 444. When he's outside and he's having a bit of a breakdown, he's over a grave. That's the 444 grave, which we assume is her grave. Like, again, what they're trying to build up, like you say, is, look, crucially, I think the way this movie works is like this. It's a mirror of you. If you think there's no evil element in the world, some of these are coincidences or flourishes that filmmaking used to be clever and put symmetries into the movie and mirroring and resonances. But to you, it's just like Richard says. It's why we'll probably talk about sync humor. It's the idea that when people break, just something else is like an emergency activation of an operating system that takes over and does something to get you out of the situation, like your fight or flight type response, but psychologically. Or if you believe there are malevolent forces, then this is actually a really well done slow build up to how you could get possessed by one, because you're constantly in and around all that, experiencing similar sorts of trauma. You're even literally going to the grave, you're in the room with all the things. And then that's why I also thought it's a great detail that at the end, when they come in, he's put all of his pictures in that room like she had when she was the nutter in that cell. Like,
I told her to cut them up too. There was a lot of blood, Doug.
it's actually, like I say, it's one of the ones where you're either going to think we're reading too much into it or you're going to get the kind of the gist of it. And I think if you get the whole film, the big picture, it's actually also a really well-structured film. It's also, by the way, not too long at all. It's not too short. I think they also nailed the pacing, even though some people think it's slow. I think it's great. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also add as well, like, in any horror movie, a good horror movie fan appreciates the kills, right? And obviously, as it starts unwinding at the end and we start realizing that, Gordon has lost his mind, it's a really good couple of, wincing moments because, one thing that you have a natural kind of fear of is and so again, they set it up at the start of the movie because, even in a low budget movie like this, pay attention, Hollywood. You can do setups and payoffs.
Monty, you were loving this, mate. It has your Tyrannosaurus. No, it has your Velociraptor scene from Jurassic Park in the film. He explains to that kid to fuck with him how you do. That's exactly the Velociraptor scene.
It's funny. I was going to mention that, Thorin, where he was like trying to scare the kid with the asbestos in exactly the same way as in Jurassic Park. Sam Neill tries to scare the kid with the Velociraptor talon.
And when he gets him with the eye over lunch with the stick, Yeah, they talk about how these lobotomies work going in through the eye, and then later you see the piece of shit that you assume to be dead.
Exactly.
Actually having had the lobotomy. By the way, probably the cruelest fate is meted out to the worst person by design, and then obviously he does another one, and like things going into eyes, that's a fucking horror staples, horror classic. Like people will definitely wince at that, but it's still not overtly gory. This isn't this isn't a gory movie at the end. It doesn't ramp up to turning into a slasher, although you could say this is a movie where ultimately it's we're kind of watching it from the slasher's perspective, and the slasher just happens to be, schizophrenic or have MPD or something. So
doesn't that also make that kill of the fucking stupid kid better as well? That's just the camera running at him like that. Yeah. That's also a fucking cool
He's
scene
like,
as well.
Uncle, like I ran out, all the lights went out. I'm sorry. I put some shit in your van.
Like, bro, you're the last one to get murked. This ain't gonna work out for you. I know it's brilliant. I love it.
Sorry, man, I was freaking out. The lights went out and I got these in the van. Is that okay?
Yeah. So let's get to theories, because there's obviously, I think there's like 3 ways to interpret the movie, and I think one of the reasons this movie does have a cult following and has endured is that, ambiguity that people like to explore. So I think broadly you can sum it thusly. Ultimately, you can argue it is coincidental. Gordon is just a working class man who was snapped. He is on a job, and all of the pageantry, all of the trappings around him, there is no supernatural element. That's ultimately a red herring. You can also say that, the place in itself is, it has some sort of malevolent presence, like the asbestos. It is something that will get under your skin. It will make you behave in a way that, the place itself is just like inherently evil and corrupting. And that's why it actually on some level affects all of them. It just affects Gordon the worst.
By the way, I'll give you a quick sidebar on that. Here's an angle people don't realise. There's a famous concept which people might have heard famously. The most well-known example is obviously the praying mantis. So the famous thing, Monty, where when a praying mantis has sex, then the female chops it. It turns out they only do that in captivity. That's just nothing to do with prayer. In wild, that's not what happens. Similarly, if you go to a zoo, the apes just beat off all the time. Yeah, they do that when they're in captivity. They're in prison, mate. When humans are in prison, they fuck each other up the arse and you have to clearly be straight. Like, what this actually implies is, like, actually settings and environments also infer, like, how your psychological process. That's the thing layered into it, Richard. It could also just be that this place is so creepy and fucked up, and everything about it's scary and creepy, even if you're just doing a clean-up job. Like, of course that'd make you paranoid. And you've got all these personal tensions and petty beefs. You add that into it, of course you'd be fucking spiraling. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then obviously the third and I guess the most popular, I would say, is that Simon is a genuine malevolent force. All the others, they were multiple personality sons. Mary was sick, but the princess and Billy and whoever else, they are just voices. They're just manifestations, aspects of herself. But Simon, as evidenced by the fact he has this consistent voice, a voice that no woman could emulate. It's clearly something to itself. Simon actually is a malevolent force that can jump from body to body.
Sounds like someone taking relish in being evil. It just has that sort of like a smirk to it. Almost. You can't even see a face, by the way. Also, by the way, that shot where they just do like the face. When you find out, it's fucking brilliantly done as well.
Yeah.
Well done.
What another movie it kind of reminded me of, and this actually, I was just looking at the year. It did come out before, but it was the Denzel Washington movie Fallen.
By the way, that's one we should definitely watch on this series. That is a sleeper and a half if you've never seen it. It's a banger.
Yeah, and a lot of people haven't actually. Which is kind of weird. I mean, a funny story. Denzel Washington passed on the Seven script. He could have had Morgan Freeman's part, And Denzel Washington said he didn't want to do a movie that just felt that evil. And then obviously a few years later he did Fallen, which is literally about a demon that can jump from person to person, and he's like got to try and track them down because he's making
really
people
well done.
murder
It's like
people.
the premise is great, but it's really well done, Monty. Because you can imagine what a great concept for a movie. In fact, each actor has to play that they're possessed. And you can imagine you're telling everyone, no, it's that guy, and then they're all like, what are you talking about? So it's actually a sleeper for real. Everyone watching the show should go watch that movie.
Yeah, let's hope it's not a Batman Returns. I don't think it is, but
surely. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it bombed at the box office. It was a stinker, a rare miss for Denzel. But anyway,
tell you what, I'm just going to remake fucking shit from the 70s. Equalizer 7, it is.
I mean, by the way,
Denzel, you're better than this.
No, but you're right. But I still watch all their movies.
Listen, he's a mega actor. He's got an amazing flaw to his game. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Denzel. So whatever, I'll watch any old shit he's in. But yeah, so this is the third theory, that there is a demonic jumper called Simon who can enter your body, as he says, the weak and the wounded, when you're at your lowest ebb, and make you do horrific things for his own entertainment. Crucially, there's a cheekiness to his delivery of the lines. He's relishing in the details when he's talking to the doctor about making Mary stab this person and all the blood coming out. And
you cut her up real good, Doc. It's like, it's sick. So there's so many iconic lines in this.
And I told her to cut up Peter. Doc. To cut him up real bad, too.
So, I mean, I'm guessing you probably I'll ask both of you.
I like the third one.
No, number 3, right?
This is what makes an interesting film, because if you watch it many times in your life, you might change perspective. So when I watched the film first, this is even one of the, because it came out in 2001, so I would have been like 18. So when I saw this film, I remember this is where I even found out about the concept of satanic panic. It was a famous thing mostly in America, obviously. And I remember finding out, and it was one of those ones where, as a young person, you think you know a fact, and now you repeat that. So, actually, it was just a thing that was debunked, and then they found that she actually had a hymen, so she couldn't have been raped. All I'll say is this: over the years, as I've gotten more into other areas, I go towards the third one, because I actually think some of the satanic panic stuff was also, I've just looked into this topic, corrupt journalists and basically officials and people covering things up. I think sometimes they did cover up murders and cults and things. A famous one, you can look up the Finders cult. There's a famous one for you online if you want to know about that. Some of these things did happen, but they just put the genie back in the bottle using media, and then they told everyone, with films like this, like, it wasn't anything real. It was just a fucking, imagine that people went out of control doing that. Which I'll say also makes this movie extra based, because if the guy who wrote the movie put himself as the character who explains it's all not real, but then at the end it is real potentially, what is he actually saying? Like, I like the cut of his jib, whatever he's doing there. I see what you're doing there, man. I see. Yeah, it's not real, is it? It's just, you can interpret it many ways, can't we? Yes. What Simon says, exactly. Yes, I know. So I'm just saying, the movie's gotten more based for me. I think it's become fantastic at the end. Yeah, and also as an aside, I do think as well. This is my own personal take. You don't have to buy into this. I actually do think it's the other way around. I have inverted the polarity most people use. So most people go, throughout all of history, they had like angels and demons and fairies and elves and mystical creatures. And what that was like aliens. But back then they didn't know what aliens were, because they weren't like us all enlightened with tech and Elon Musk and stuff. So they just interpreted it with the religious imagery of their day. I think it's the other way around. I think actually aliens is to make and evil entities seem like they're palatable and they're just other things from other planets. I think that these sorts of things are ways of telling people, it's not actually anything fucked up and creepy and external. It's just some psychological process in you. Everyone could create in their mind a character that's malevolent evil and make a young girl just go and slice up her parents, which I noticed, by the way, is the ultimate get out for any crime or murder. A kid just snapped and just fucking killed everyone. I'll also point this out, by the way. This is an angle people won't think about, is even though, yes, if your daughter came in, you'd be shocked and you wouldn't immediately fucking cap her in the head, would you? So you'd talk with her. You'd go, what's going on, darling? Same time, I'll just put this out there. How could, like, a little girl just cut up two adult people? Surely they'd fight it off unless you get some extra force from the fucking thing. Now, again, are you ready? In real life, they're going to go, well, that's like that weird phenomenon. Because what's genius about secular modern culture is you just take the most mystical things in the world and you just change the words and the framing and it becomes everyday. So you go, oh, that's nonsense. Someone creating things and they're like designing them. Now what happened was all of the universe came out of nothing. Do you believe that? Right. But from after that, then a rock basically came alive and then eventually put a billion in there. 10 billion in there, put 10 billion in there, and eventually you're there with a computer on an aeroplane, and there's nothing weird about that. It's just totally normal. This could have happened to anyone by chance. You're just unlucky or lucky, depending on how your life went. So you got that whole aspect. And so I think at the end of it all, you do just make it so that everything's just humdrum, and it's like, oh, you know, when a baby's under the car, she just gets like 4 times her physical strength and lifts the car off. Whoa, well, that's nothing weird then. No, Thorin, it's a psychological process. You have to understand psychological. All I'm going to say is, looking at people who made psychology, they were the most fucked up, degenerate people of all time. And this is their psyop on humanity. Anyway, that ends my run. That's
it's great.
There's my
So,
rant.
I think
it
what's-
wouldn't be an episode of this podcast without psyop being
There you
used.
go.
So
There you go.
I think what's interesting about the end of this movie, though, is that there is a tension, and it's really the not knowing which one it is.
Yeah, of course.
That makes this so good,
It would
right?
be worse if they told you. It'd be worse if there was
it'd
some
be a
actual
million
like
times worse. But
scene that showed you what it was or something,
So-
you know, wouldn't it? It'd be bollocks.
what I think is so cool about this is by using the woman with the multiple personalities. So first off, that is incredibly fascinating that the human mind can compartmentalize trauma in that way, which it absolutely can under the right circumstances. I mean, it's tragic, but it is fascinating that the human mind is capable of that. And because they use the dissociative identity disorder in order to, you know, kind of bring forth Simon, the implication is if her mind is capable of having all these characters, isn't Gordon's mind capable of having 2 characters within it? Is Simon part of the unconscious that emerges? If, like you said, Thorin, at the start of the movie, he's obviously stretched very thin. He needs this job, so he has to promise to do it faster. And then he gets boiling water poured onto him.
He has to hire his fucking stupid kid nephew to do it as well. And then you notice at the beginning of the movie, right, bloody hell, it's a 3-week job. We can do it in 2 outside the thing. I need this job. We'll do it in 1. It's like they're just making all the tension and fucked up. Like I say, this would be a tense movie without even the supernatural element.
1 week. 1 week. That's fast. I'm good for it. You know I'm good for it. I need the job.
Right.
We
And
need
you
the
know,
bonus. Oh, you better do the fucking job. We need that bonus, mate. Yeah, it's all brilliant.
but he says it himself where he snaps because the dog is barking and the baby's crying and obviously he hasn't been sleeping and the boiling water. And, you know, you wonder in that moment, like, sure, most of us would just get angry, but is there some level of resentment towards that situation with the right person and the right psychological pressure that results in Simon, you know, manifesting, right? And then the obvious question is that just a malevolent spirit? Because we know from Mary Hobbs that Simon didn't manifest originally in the asylum, manifested in her home, right? And manifested in Gordon's home. I mean, he actually gets talked to at the beginning, but I think the events happened before the movie started. So you wonder maybe it is some sort of, it could be a malevolent spirit, it could be some aspect of human psychology. And I think that's the scary thing is it's like, if you're in that moment of vulnerability, is the impetus to kill coming from yourself, or is there some sort of external force that is then drawn into you? And that then controls you and uses you to commit these heinous acts. Because Mary, we learn, she was a little girl, had the China doll. You know, it gets broken on top of her. That's why she has the scars on her chest. She snaps, takes her brother's like new knife, and then kills her family. And that's why she's in the mental asylum. That's why she undergoes this. But there's a question with Mary as to, because we don't think she had the dissociative identity disorder before doing this, right? Because that was the cause of the disorder happening, one would assume. So Simon appears before the rest of the personalities, which is also very interesting, which makes you wonder, like, is this Gordon in the future, right? Is Gordon going to disassociate in the same way? I think it's really interesting to think about all the possibilities here.
Yeah, and look, I think as well, one of the things that I kind of like about just the way that it's set up, at the end, is that ultimately this idea of it is the paranormal running up against the scientific in this weird gray area between those two worlds, because obviously we know, if you look back at the history of how we treat and handle mental illness, and in terms of it being a solid science, it's changing all the time, ideas change all the time. Asylums were places of insane levels of cruelty, where people were brutalized and abused, and often the mental health problems, the dissociative states, that's what you'd put yourself into to deal with the environment you were in. Not that it was always there and that's what caused the initial problems. It was almost like the brain's defense mechanism. And then, of course, anytime you fucked up, you get fucking whacked out with some fucking thorazine or some shit. Like, these were really bad places. And also, you think about the history of lobotomies into electroshock therapy and how, literally destroying the brain to cure the brain. It is, frightening. But obviously within that, you have this science, which is, it's, multiple personalities, dissociative identity disorder. But then in there is this possibility of malevolent entities entering the body at key moments to make you do things you don't want to do. And so that's kind of where it is, like, textually interesting, because ultimately, I think, film is, and again, it has this parallel with Cure. I kind of feel that there's a little element to the movie that it doesn't telegraph. It's very subtle, but it's like he's a new father. And when they have that argument and they're going, no, he loves being a father, actually. He loves it. He loves his family and he loves having a child.
Last few months, Gordo, I'm seeing some cracks, I worry. Mikey knows what I'm talking about, right, Mikey?
He does have the new baby and all.
Should be the joy of his life, dude.
And you're like, you're kind of overselling this a little bit, actually. Like, almost as if, he was, like, leaping to his defense
it's like
a bit.
you say about the end, that's another scene he nails the emotion when he's going, she did have a silly face on, didn't she? It's like, it's so overwrought and so fucking emotional.
Yeah, because, it's like, look, I'm a shock people. I'm not a father, right? Monty's a father. I'm a just shock people here. It's fucking stressful having a kid, right? And can confirm,
especially newborns, man, because it's really is the combo of, like, not sleeping for months, and you're just like you turn into a zombie. It's very unpleasant.
Yeah, and look, like in Cure,
would it be responsible to say just vape, bro? Just get some fucking weed. I would just chill. Hot summer in the city. There you go. Not advice, not medical advice, by the way. Not a doctor.
Definitely.
For legal purposes, I need to say that. Go on. I never even thought about this. The actual overlap with Cure is mental. There are so many similar interpretations.
Yeah, because like in Cure, it explicitly says, you can't do anything you don't want to do, and yet these awful things happen. Here, it's kind of like when Simon alludes to the weak and the wounded, what are we really talking about with weakness? And unfortunately, one of the things that does build up in stressful situations, though you hate it within yourself, when a marriage is getting tough, when you're getting sleepless nights because you're raising a kid, when you're watching all the money disappear out your bank account because you need to provide for this new life that maybe you planned for, maybe you didn't, but you are going to do the right thing and raise your kids. There will always be, and it's very human, a lot of people feel guilty about it, but most therapists will tell you this is normal. You do get that resentment. It can creep in there. You think, fuck,